hopefully had a chance to engage with the framework. So I'm hoping this might be something that's useful for you to then apply to the work you're going to be doing next. And I think spend a bit of time when you have it to maybe look at the final list of conditions and things that people have come up with. I think it's particularly interesting that mental models has a lot more than other groups. So I think that's clearly an area that we need to think about kind of collectively, how we respond to some of these misconceptions around participation or respond to some of these biases that people might have around whether the public are able to participate or whether they want to participate or whether it's the role of politicians as kind of being democratically elected to just get on and make decisions. There are all these sorts of, I guess, underlying beliefs that I think we all hold to some extent that gets in the way of participation actually happening. I think, as always, the middle layer of this, so the relationships and connections and the power dynamics, is often the hardest to think about, but often actually is the connection between the mental models and some of the more obvious things like the policies and practices. So good to kind of consider, perhaps particularly in the context of the work that you did yesterday around particularly thinking about who might be allies in the system, who can kind of help to shift mental models and help to kind of make the case, and how you kind of strengthen those relationships and build those connections to kind of support this work. But yeah, I will finish there unless anybody's got any questions at this point.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes. Does anyone have questions, comments before we go to our closing session? Remember, the only time we'll be together again is July. So use this time to ask any questions you have.
Well, maybe I do have a question, if I may. Is there now like a next step in the process? If we have mapped this, what do we do? Should we prioritize? Should we, say, okay, this is something we can do now, kind of short term, longer term? What would like the next step working with this framework be?
So that's a good question. I think obviously prioritizing is part of that, and thinking about, I think where you can have influence, but also kind of maybe where you can work with other people. So I think one of the things that this can be quite helpful in is just kind of acknowledging the whole and acknowledging all of the different conditions, but then, as you say, prioritizing where you can particularly have a role in intervening, or where you can maybe encourage others to have a role in intervening as well. Because I think that it's the dangerousness just feels too much as well. So I definitely think prioritization is a key part of it. I think when you're thinking around and kind of working with your mentors in developing your kind of action plans, I think it's useful to have a bit of this kind of this framework or thinking to inform that, and then you can kind of focus in on, this is the particular area that I think I can make an intervention that's going to help.
And is there like a recommendation to try to think of different interventions on all the levels, or is it somehow like a cascade first, or or it just depends on the context?
Yeah, so I think it does depend a bit on the context, and it depends a bit on where you think you can have an influence as well. I do think it's useful to have in mind all of the levels when you're thinking about it and trying to think. So if you're maybe working directly on a policy, if your primary focus is developing a policy or a new practice, then actually kind of what can you be doing that helps to ensure some of the maybe like the mental models are a bit more aligned with that. But yeah, I think there's no one size fits all model for doing this. And I mean, systems change is incredibly complex and it's difficult to think about. I think one of the things to look out for is where you might be able to make a change in one place that could have cascading effects elsewhere. That's definitely always a good thing to look at, how there might be relationships between these different levels. And maybe it's an issue of if you look at the relationships and connections, say, there may be one key person you've identified that actually, if you can shift the way that they think around participation, then that opens up a whole load of other opportunities in shifting policies, or it might shift the ability to have more resources, or they might be able to influence other people. So that might be also something to think about.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, this is just a quick one to put my mind at rest. I've not looked at the participation book yet, but I'm familiar with it from my previous engagement on the Climate Democracy Accelerator program. In there, there was a very good guideline on how to develop the action plan. Is that what we're expecting on this program as well?
Yes, and Kip will answer that in like now. All right. Any other questions related to the content before we close and we can discuss the next steps? No. All right. Let me just share my screen then.